others by entwined floral. I am Mariah Forber. My husband Lawrence Forber came to this area in 1837 from Ohio. I was born in Vermont, and my family settled east of here in present-day Warren Township in 1836. Lawrence and I married in 1840, and our homestead was where St. Gilbert Catholic Church is today. In the 1860s, we deeded this land to be used as a Grayslake cemetery. Lawrence and I buried 5 of our young children here. We also have 2 adult children here. This cemetery records the death of Grayslake's first mayor. Others buried here are early pioneers, businessmen, veterans, children, and people just like you and me. There are no official records for this cemetery. The oldest death date is from the 1840s and is probably a reinterment. The latest burial was a cremation just last year. The village of Grayslake maintains and the Grayslake Historical Society work together to maintain this cemetery. The village sees that it is mowed. The Grayslake Historical Society makes sure the leaves are raked, flowers are put in certain urns, and the peonies are cut each fall. This cemetery reminds us of several Civil War soldiers. I say reminds because it's not for sure if they're buried here or not. If they died of disease or battle, maybe their bodies were not returned home. Today, in honor of the 150th anniversary of the start of the Civil War, we will hear some stories about men who served and also a little history about the war. Avon Township had many men in the Union Army. A majority of them served in the 96th Illinois Volunteer Infantry. I have asked Dighton Granger to read us a brief history of this unit. We met Dighton a few years ago, and in case you have forgotten, like I do, we worked at Grand Township before the Civil War. During the war, he did serve in the 96th. He returned to this area and was an officer for the Soldiers and Sailors Union in the early 1890s. He was a member of the Masonic Lodge. Dighton died in Wisconsin in 1927, but his body was returned here for burial. Ladies and gentlemen, let's put our hands together and welcome Dighton Granger.
Thank you, Mariah. The 96th Illinois Volunteer Infantry was mustered in on September 6, 1862, at Camp Butler at Rockford, Illinois. The regiment was composed of 6 companies from Joe Daviess County in western Illinois and 4 companies from Lake County. Men from Avon Township were in Company B. After a month of training, the 96th marched to Chicago, where it took a train to Cincinnati, Ohio. It had already lost 1 man who died of typhoid fever. The regiment took part in several battles in Tennessee and suffered heavy losses at Chickamauga, Georgia. At Lookout Mountain in Tennessee, Company B lost Esau Rich, who is remembered in this cemetery. The regiment again did battle in Georgia, including Rocky Face Ridge, Osaka, Pine Mountain, Kennesaw Mountain, and Atlanta. The 96th final battles were in Tennessee. At Camp Harper in Tennessee, the regiment was mustered out on June 10, 1865. It marched to Nashville and took a train to Chicago, where they were treated to a hearty reception. They then marched to Camp Douglas. The regiment lost 2 more men to death after arriving there. The 96th Illinois Volunteer Infantry received its final pay and discharges on June 28th and became history after an eventful existence of 3 years. The regiment of about 1,000 had lost 241 men to battle or disease.
Thank you, Dighton. Before I introduce Chauncey, I would like to list some of the other veterans who are in this cemetery. We have Orville Byron with the 96th, Leroy Demon with the 96th, Henry Domsky, 96th, John Ellis, the 153rd Illinois Volunteer Infantry. We've already heard about Dighton. Charles Hall was with the 37th Illinois Volunteer Infantry. We will learn about Charles Hendy in a few minutes. We have Charles Capel, who was with the 12th Pennsylvania Cavalry. Matthew Martin with the 17th Illinois Cavalry. We will learn about John Morrow in a few minutes. It is also said that Wells Morrow was in the 37th Illinois Volunteer Infantry. Adam Owen was in the 146th Illinois Volunteer Infantry. Esau Rich, the 96th, and we will hear his story in a few minutes. Alfred Simmons served in 17th Illinois, 19th Illinois, and ended up with the musicians in the 37th. Jeremiah Smith with the 17th Illinois Cavalry. Alan Whitney, 96th, and Orlando Young, the 37th. But right now, I would like you to meet Chauncey Morse, who's going to lead us around. Chauncey, would you like to stand next to me while I tell about you? Chauncey was born August 15, 1839, at Painesville, Ohio. When he was 6 weeks old, he came here with his parents, Enoch Morse and Amy Marble Morse. And he lived his entire life here in Lake County. Chauncey spent 4 years of his life, however, serving in the War of Rebellion, which we now call the Civil War. He will tell you about that in a few minutes. In 1866, in Ohio, Chauncey married Mary Ann Lewis. They had 4 children, 2 sons and 2 daughters. One son died at age 21, and one daughter died at age 7. The 2 remaining children lived in Grayslake and became very well known. Son John was born in 1872 on the Morse farm west of Haynesville. He married Louise Rich. Louise was a granddaughter of David Rich, who came to the area in 1836 from Allegheny County, New York. John became the cashier for the Merchants and Farmers Bank, which was the first bank in Grayslake and located at the southeast corner of Center and Whitney. He eventually left the bank and started the Morris Insurance Agency. That agency exists today as the Clow Insurance Agency on Center Street. John's daughter-in-law is Marguerite Morse. Some of you might have had her as a kindergarten teacher, as she was Grayslake's first kindergarten teacher. Chauncey's daughter Amy was born in 1868 and married Deke White. She was the postmistress of Grayslake for 5 years, from 1893 to 1898. Deke was the local barber. He had come to Grayslake in 1894, and he cut hair until he died in 1938. He was the village clerk for 20 years. Chauncey left the farm and eventually moved to Grayslake. He and his wife Mary Land lived on Park Avenue, the house on the southeast corner of Westerfield and Park. He lived here until he died in 1911 and is buried in Waukegan's Oakwood Cemetery. Mary Ann had died previously. Chauncey was known as the Colonel in Grayslake, even though he never achieved that rank. I'm going to have the Colonel tell about his business and military experiences.
Thank you. I was studying law at the firm of Blodgett, Upton, and Williams in Waukegan when the call came out in 1861 from President Lincoln looking for volunteers. I joined the first company that stationed us in Springfield. That company was soon disbanded. I then joined the 37th Infantry, Company C, as a second lieutenant. In 1862, I was promoted to first lieutenant. Our captain was Eugene Payne of Waukegan. Our regiment was known as the Illinois Greyhounds because of our quick marching. And when we were not engaged in battle, we spent our time marching after the enemy. In 1865, I was promoted to the rank of captain when I switched to Company B. In 1866, I mustered out. I was one of the first to go into the service and one of the last to come out from the volunteer corps. I will practice law here in Lake County the rest of my life, including some time with C.T. Haydecker in Waukegan. I was a member of the Rising Sun Masonic Lodge and also a member of the Modern American Woodsmen. So if you would like to come with me, I'll take you on the tour and we can meet our first speaker. Please watch your step, the ground's uneven.